Welcome back, Life Sciences. I hope you enjoyed your break. As I always say to you, it's really important just to get the blood flowing, to stand up, shake the legs, right, and just get the mind a little bit of time just to take a rest. We're looking at this concept of gas exchange. And as I said to you, we very wrongly call it breathing. And we can't call it breathing. So when we're talking about gas exchange, we're looking at the exchange of gases. So we're looking at how different organisms, all right, were able to exchange oxygen and carbon dioxide. That's what we're talking about. We are not able to use the other gases that are in the atmosphere. We want to get oxygen in and we want to get carbon dioxide out. And that's the same for all living organisms. Remember, all living organisms, they need to cellular respire. And during cellular respiration, oxygen is needed and carbon dioxide is released. And we need to see different organisms have different ways in which they are going to do that. When we're looking at how the different organisms do these, we're looking at, if we can recap, last time we looked at the whole concept of how plants gas exchange. And as I said, that's why it's incorrect to say the word breathe, because plants can't breathe, but they are able to exchange gases. And we looked at that whole concept of leaves, right, and little lenticels on the plants, where what did they do? They took in gases. But when it comes to plants, very often they're a little bit different to us because they take in a lot more carbon dioxide and they release oxygen. So it might be a different in and an out, but it's still an exchange of gases. Then we looked at how, all right, certain kinds of organisms, and we looked at how the earthworm, right, was able to take in oxygen. Earthworms are nice and slimy and moist, and that beautiful skin is just well enough for it to be able to take in, all right, those different oxygen and carbon dioxide. And each time, right, remember when you're looking at something, how those efficient gaseous exchange points, how is the organism made to make gas exchange so much more efficient? Now we're going to carry on with that concept, and we're going to look at two more other organisms. All right, guys, so when we look at the next organism we're going to look at is insects. All right, and everybody who, all right, when I look at insects, I don't like insects. The only nice insect that I know, all right, is going to be a ladybug. Insects give me the chrills. But we're going to look at how insects take in oxygen and how they release carbon dioxide. Now, when we look at insects, insects are really small. And that means that they should be able to just nice and easy by diffusion. But oh no, what do insects have? They have an exoskeleton. And that's usually some kind of outer covering, right, that's going to be very hard. And what happens is oxygen can't come in through the skin. It's pretty much the same as we have. So it's got to have, now for the first time, we're going to start to see a special, and hear the word, a more developed and efficient system. Now I'm going to show you the system briefly, but you're actually going to be surprised when we look at the human section, how many of the names they have in common. Now, this is my insect over here. Now, what happens is if you ever take a look very carefully on the body over here. So this is when we look at the insect, that's the head, that's the thorax, and this is the abdomen. Now, on the side of the abdomen, if you look very carefully, all right, are what we call spiracles. Okay, here we go. Here's the spelling of them. They are called spiracles, and very simply what they are holes, okay? So if you look, they've got a little flap, and what the insect can do is this little hole can open and obviously close. Now, when we get to insects, insects are really busy. They're crawling all over the show. They are flying, so they're going to need a lot of oxygen. So what is going to happen here is when those spiracles open, oxygen is going to move into the body. Now, it's not as simple as that. I want you to have a look. It's actually quite a system that's very simple, similar to ours. You don't have to worry too much about all of the different functions, but look here. It's what is called a tracheal system. And when we look at our system, we also have a trachea. And basically what we're looking at is that insects actually have a series of tubes, right? So they have all of these tubes that when the spiracle opens, what happens is oxygen goes into these spiracles, it travels along these trachea, and it gets all the oxygen to the tissue. Now, I hope that you notice that there's something here. There's no blood. Now, when we looked at the transport system, insects have an open circulatory system. What does that mean? They don't have blood, and they don't have blood cells. That means the oxygen comes in here, and it diffuses and bathes directly into the tissue. I don't know if you guys have ever stepped on an insect. An insect, when you step on it, is never red. All right, it's yellow. And that basically means the oxygen goes in. It doesn't have red blood cells. It doesn't have blood. The oxygen goes in, and it just bathes, like the whole body is just like this. I can't say soup. It's called the hemicole. And all the oxygen is bathed in here. So it doesn't actually have a transport system. So when we think about that, when we look at an efficient gaseous exchange, it doesn't have, all right, a transport system, but it's small. Does it really need it? It's constantly got this oxygen coming in. So we're going to find that in gaseous exchange, there's this trachea. So what happens? What happens in the tissue? Cellular respiration. Carbon dioxide moves from a high concentration to a low concentration, back into these spiracles, and out it goes into the atmosphere. So we're starting to see, for the very first time, we're starting to see a system that is far more highly developed. We actually have serious special features that we need to have. So guys, as I said again, each time you look at it, you've got to keep in the back of your mind, I'm going to go over, all right, the requirements again later with you, just so that you can, all right, know the importance of this. So thin and permeable, what do we mean by that? So when we look at the trachea, what does thin and permeable mean? The thin and permeable probably means that here the cells, the trachea, are very thin. It's an insect. It cannot have really, all right, thick trachea like we are going to have. But the surface area is not so much, all right, thin and permeable, really in the tissues, and not so much the organs, the cells. So I suppose I could put a tick there because it's going to go directly to the cells. A large surface area, it's going to bathe all of the cells. We don't need to travel through a certain area. It's going to be moist. The cells are moist. Yes, they bathe in like a tissue fluid. Well ventilated. Yes, what do we have? We have spiracles. It uses its body, all right? Insects, the abdomen actually moves out and in. It doesn't have them, it's got like slight muscles that breathes in, breathes out, breathes in, breathes out, the actual breathing system. So yes, it is well ventilated. Right, transport system, not here. Right, doesn't have blood, and it doesn't have, all right, all these vessels taking it around. But as I said, it's not really a big insect, so everything's going around the middle. Well protected, well, it's got a hard body covering. So we're going to say that probably it is well protected. The crunch, I don't know if you've ever stepped on one, even a spider, all of those things. They're hard, they're tough, and that outer layer protects them nicely. Okay, now we're going to go to the fish. Now I'm sure as I tell you the fish, you guys, oh yes, I know what those are. They live in water, right? So what they're definitely not going to have is they're not going to have any kind of lungs. So what we see now, remember we said to you, it's the environment in which they live. So now a fish, guys, this is a problem. There's less oxygen in the water, the same volume of water, than there is in air. So what we're going to find now, fish need to come up with a special system, right, that is going to help them to breathe. Now, if you have a look over here, if you've ever skinned a fish or caught a fish and had a look, what color is this? Guys, it's red, 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 which means that the gills are filled with blood. Now, I want to show you this little animation that's happening. You can see on the board as we go. Now, those gills, can you see here? These are all red. These are all blood. And what the fish does is, the fish uses its mouth. All right, so guys, the only thing that's going to happen is it's going to happen in its head. No other parts of the body. So what will happen is water moves in. I don't know if you've ever seen a fish. A fish is opening its mouth, closing its mouth. That's its breathing. Okay, that's breathing. It's physically having to open, bring in water, and then close. So now look what happens. It's nice. So as it opens its mouth, the water rushes in. And look at all those thousands of little, gills that is filled with blood. Now have a look here. It also goes through the gills, kind of got like these little grooves that goes through the gill. So what happens is when it goes the mouth, the water moves over the gills, and what takes up? Oxygen is in high concentration to low concentration, and the fish is going to have a blood system. So it's going to go into the blood. And when it closes its mouth, what happens over here, all right, opens its mouth. When it closes its mouth, the water goes out, all right, and what do you think went into the water? Carbon dioxide. So when the fish opens, water goes in, bathes the gills, the blood, gaseous exchange occurs, oxygen goes into the fish, carbon dioxide goes out, and closes its mouth, and it's got a little slit over here. It's called an apiculum or a gill slit. It opens and the water comes out. He doesn't swallow the water. Open, close, go out. So as you can imagine, right, when we look at the fish, when we have a look at all the different things, are they thin and permeable? Look at these. There's like millions, there are thousands of them. Small little thin, gills. Yes. Do they have a large surface area? Definitely. I don't have one solid one. I've got lots and lots of them. Okay, I don't think moistness is going to be a problem because it lives in water. Is it well ventilated? Yes. The mouth moves up and down and it comes in. Does it have a transport system? Very much so, because what do I have? A lot of blood. And is it well protected? Well, it is within the head, right? And it is within the body of the cell, but it hasn't got that really strong protection. The apiculum is quite hard, but not that really strong protection that we're going to find when we look at, when we look at us. Now, the last organism that we're going to look at, and we're going to keep that for the next lesson, we're going to look at how mammals undergo gas exchange. And that is us, all right? We need energy all the time. We are warm-blooded, endothermic, and we need a lot of energy, which means we're going to need a lot of oxygen. So we need to have a really high developed system. So next time I see you, we're going to have a look at the human lungs. But that's all for now. We're going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back.